Howdy, howdy. Welcome, folks. We're glad to have you back here on a Monday with us. It is just a wonderful day to get to talk and share. My name is Doug Kothe. I am the founder and principal consultant of People Smart Group, as well as the founder of the Organizational Health Collective. Those two groups, first, People Smart Group, we help organizations build stronger, healthier organizations so that they can get the greatest productivity and the greatest results possible. And then the Organizational Health Collective is a gathering of practitioners that focus in this arena and helping us to grow in our abilities, become best experts in our field, best practices, those sorts of things, as well as networking together to help figure out how we can help one another. So, and my partner.
That's me.
What are you? Yeah, who are you?
Dr. Terry, Managing Generator Consulting, coaching and consulting. I do some executive coaching with people on getting themselves out of the way of their growth. And then together, Christine and I, my partner, Christine, my other partner, I guess, she and I work with team development and the very things that the Organizational Health Collective focus on, which is really helping people have fulfillment in their businesses. And so what are we talking about today?
We are talking about strategic anchors.
Strategic anchors.
Yeah. It's one of those topics that I think is vital for a company, but yet so many of us probably have some confusion around it. What is this thing? What does it do? Why do I need this? And then how would I use it if I did? And another piece, we've been looking at vision and mission. We've been looking at values. This is another one of those pieces that when people create them, far too often they become marketing tools rather than decision tools within your organization. And so quick definition, strategic anchors are usually about 3, occasionally 4, really focused statements that really help you understand, hey, what do we do that sets us apart from everyone else? What's special about what we do? And so that's the nature of a strategic anchor, and it becomes a decision grid for how do we make decisions in our organization. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. And I had the privilege of walking with Terry and Christine through theirs, and as they reviewed, just to say, hey, are they what we think they are, or should we kind of press in on them a little bit more? And that's the nature. I mean, you look at the two of us, we're working on this stuff with our organizations just as much as you are, and we're trying to keep it fresh and make sure we're right on and we're spot on, and it's helping us to advance our organization. So we're not just talking to you as a bunch of practitioners here, we're actually talking to you as people who are actually in the fray right there with you.
Doing it ourselves, absolutely. And I think that the real meat of this idea is it's really whether it's the vision or the mission, the behavioral values, or as we're getting into today, the strategic anchors, it's really helping us to narrow focus to remove the stuff that we're not doing so we can do the stuff that we are doing much better. And that's really the key of the strategic anchors, is to start really getting into, okay, how are we going to succeed?
Yep.
What exactly are we going to be doing and not doing?
Yep.
So that we can do the things we are doing much more focused and not have that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah. Yep. That's a great way to put it, because it's so easy when you're leading an organization, leading a team, to just get caught up on, hey, what's the next great thing, right? Let's go run after this. Oh, everyone else is having success with it. Well, is that who you are? Is that how you set yourself apart in the market? Does that really fit you? And so maybe now would be a good time, Terry, I don't know, share the picture of the strategic anchor triangle just as a starting place.
Yeah, actually, that would be great. What I think about most is like, okay, so we're in just an example of the shiny object. We're in, pretend for a minute, we're in real estate and we're buying multifamilies and we're increasing our number of multifamilies. And this is how we do what we do. And we have some strategic anchors around growing our real estate. But then all of a sudden, Bitcoin starts to go up. And I decide, you know what? I want to actually just start doing a bunch of Bitcoin too.
Yep.
Well, that's what people do that get them in trouble. And then you put a bunch of money into your Bitcoin, and now the business that you were doing is ignored, as well as you have a big freaking vacuum of money being pulled out of your business because you just put it into the ether. And a lot of people may have real good experiences with Bitcoin or the DeFi money, whatever. But if it's not your primary deal, you've just split yourself in half, and that stuff is so volatile, you might be in big trouble, and it has very little to do with real estate.
Yep.
And so this is the kind of idea is like, oh, when we veer off, how far off are we veering?
Yeah.
Does it fit in what my overall strategy is?
Good. Well said. Yeah. Yeah. That whole sense of it distracts us from what we're actually good at to run after things we're not. And so how do I stay within my expertise, right? If my expertise is real estate, I don't need to be chasing Bitcoin. I don't need to be chasing the stock market. I need to be investing in real estate because that's the area I know. That's the area I succeed at. Why would I go jump into other things that are new to me? And so, yeah, that's a great point. So one of the bases we sometimes start people with, but this is not the whole picture, that helps us people understand. And I'm just going to throw it up here. Michael Porter came up with this model, but it's a really helpful one to think through just on a really beginning basis of what sets us apart. And so you see the triangle here, and strategic anchors here break into three different pieces in three different directions. Now, this isn't your final strategic anchors. One of them could be, but the question is, what sets us apart, right? And in this model,
before you go there, one of the things that I would say is this is not the strategic anchors as much as the diving board with which you're going to dive into looking at your strategic anchors. And so for me, this is a beginning point. And honestly, in the beginning of my working with people on strategy and strategic anchors, I didn't think about this piece. And when I started to do that, and I noticed, especially with my conversation when Doug took me through this with Christine, this was a really nice foundational piece to make a decision on where we're at with how we go to market. Yeah. And so it's almost a precursor to what your strategic anchors are, in my opinion, because if you don't know which one of these three you are, then it's harder to go, okay, so how do we succeed? Because we'll have a little bit of everything in there.
Yep.
And so for me, this is like the diving board or the foundation where we're going to dive into strategic anchors from this. Now, let's hear what you were saying.
Well, thanks, Terry. Yeah. So as a diving board, just beginning to think about what really sets us apart. And there's three different ways a company can set themselves apart. They can set themselves apart with product excellence, meaning they're top of market in terms of having the highest quality of products, the best products in their market. Or you can have system excellence. System excellence is where you're top of the market in how you do your business. So you have such a system in place that it's reproducible again and again and again and again, and it gets the same results again and again and again. You are at the top of market in that zone. Or customer intimacy, which is basically saying my customers are known and they know they're known by me. They know that I'm here to help them and enter into their world and craft what I do around them personally. And so these are the three different ways that we set ourselves apart. Now, one problem that people fall into is they think I could be all three. But the honest to goodness truth here is you can't. Because if you start trying to focus on all three, you do none well. And the question is, at your core, what do you do best? And then you'll have a second. And then the third one, it doesn't mean for mine, this is a pretty good model for what mine looks like for my company. Customer intimacy is the closest part. My work is customized around my customers. I spend a lot of time listening to them. I spend a lot of time in discovery, trying to understand them. And then I believe I bring product excellence. I bring excellence in what I do to them, but it's still not the leading edge. The leading edge is the customer intimacy. The product excellence is a second piece. And then tertiary to all of that is, do I have all the systems and fine-tuned stuff running in the background? You know what? I'm not the greatest at administration. And so you're not going to ever see the perfect administration in my organization, but we've got to do it, right? We got to do well at it. I got to be turning out invoices. I got to be doing all the different things that are part of my business. And yet that's not what actually we emphasize and live based upon.
I love that distinction of the system excellence is for not necessarily because we work with systems in a way, we're kind of system adjacent because for Christine and I, we're customer intimacy all the way. We focus on developing the relationship with our client and help them develop their relationships with their clients. And it's kind of a continual thing. And our product that we present to them becomes product excellence for them, if that's what they're looking for. But it's a journey that they go on. We're not having a product excellent kind of thing. Like we made this pen and it is the best pen on the market that we're selling, because that's not what we're doing. We don't have a product, so to speak. So we're not product excellence. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not serving at our highest capacity. What it means is inside our company, we're not focusing on making the best product to sell in the market. And so we're working on customer intimacy, and we go to market with that customer intimacy idea. Also, with the systems excellence, we don't necessarily have perfected systems that we just duplicate everywhere. What we do is through the customer and that customer relationship, we help them to understand where their systems are breaking down and help them move towards excellence as part of what we do as consulting. But we're not selling system excellence. System excellence selling would be something to the effect of a franchise, and we're actually selling a franchise, that we're selling a system in a box. That would be that system excellence kind of idea. Product excellence is kind of like we have this super awesome phone that everybody should have, and that's what we're selling, product excellence. And so the idea is not that we don't move towards excellence in systems or products when we're working with somebody, but we're focused on how we're actually serving our client so that they can have the best product they have and the best systems that make their life easier.
Well said. Well said. Another distinction I think is very important is we can have 3 different companies in the same market that are different. And so just thinking of us in the coaching consulting space, right? Both of us think through customer intimacy. So you're going to get very customized products. You're going to get a lot of listening to understand where are the needs, where are the struggles, where are you really succeeding, and how can we help put together and take you to the next level. That's customer intimacy, right? But you could have product excellence. How many coaches or consultants do you see out there and they say, we have a leadership development program that is second to none. And if you just go through our program, now we're selling a program. We're saying product excellence is what's going to set us apart. System excellence. You may have an organization that just says, hey, you know what? We've got it all figured out, and we now sell it to other coaches to do the work, right? And so now they've got a system that is reproducible, and so they just hand it off to other coaches, and they franchise the system of their coaching system. And so same space, 3 different focuses, 3 different approaches.
In fact, I can give you an example of the system excellence. I don't know how excellent they are, but Action Coach is a systems focused thing where this is our system, and you can buy into our system for an ungodly amount of money, and then now you can be an action coach. Product excellence. I don't know of anybody that's super product excellence in the coaching world, but all of them believe they are.
So that's a picture. And then if you want to think of some bigger companies that fit in these categories, you think of, like, say, Starbucks as a system excellence, right? They pop up a Starbucks, and you can expect the same exact thing wherever Starbucks is. Generally.
I'm going to say Starbucks is now system excellence. I think they were much more customer intimacy 20 years ago, and really focused on the customer. And as they got growing and growing and growing, they shifted over to system excellence and kind of forgot about the customer a little bit.
Well said. Yeah. Another one that people might not think about because they do well in customer intimacy as well is probably a Southwest, right? Southwest, they do their best because of their efficiencies. They're on time. They're, the different things they focus on, low cost structure. And then customer experience is a part of that, but so the customer is a big piece of it, but at the same time, their system is what it really sets them apart and gets them ahead of some of the others. Because they're not sitting here saying, hey, we've got all the frills. We don't have the meals, we don't have first class, but we do have a great system that'll get you on a plane and off a plane in the right timing, and for a low price. And so there's an example. Product excellence, I could think of things like Apple, right? I mean, they're always trying to stay top of market with their phones, always trying to stay top of market with their iPads, all of those things. Their goal is to be top of market. We are going to have the best product that you're going to want, and we're going to sell it at a premium because of that, right? Customer intimacy, the example I've heard of on a larger picture was a company like Nordstrom's, where you basically had essentially your personal shopper when you showed up. They sought to remember you, they sought to know you, and they sought to help you meet your needs specifically in their store. And so those are some big picture examples maybe to really help us see the three of them. But as Terry said, this is the springboard. And so I'm going to pull that down for us, and we're going to continue on just talking. So where do we go from there? That helps us understand a little bit of what we do, right? And what our approach is and what sets us apart. But that's not the end of the line. So how would you share, kind of from your experience, Terry, what gets you from there to the next step?
Well, the next step is really kind of instead of trying to figure out what strategic anchors are, what we have people do is write down everything that they do in their company to be serving their product to their people within their system. And so all three of those again are we're hitting on them. Okay, what do you do? Who do you do it for, and how do you do it? What is that system that you do it, and get that all down. And we both, myself, Christine and I and Doug were taught do this amoeba thing, and I'm not sure why amoeba, but I think it's to allow yourself to be more creative in what you're doing rather than lock yourself into some kind of system. But when you just kind of write it all out, you start to really allow yourself to go, okay, this is what we're doing right now, all of the different things that we do. And when we get that out there, we can start seeing how it starts to categorize itself into different areas of focus. And so that's kind of the how we do what we do. And I'll say that for me, I'm a galvanizer, and when I'm doing this process, especially for me, one of my problems that I get into is I already have an idea of the answers, and I want to get people to understand my answers. And so when I do this type of thing, especially for my two businesses, I tend to galvanize Christine into, okay, this is the answer. And in fact, I was doing it with Doug when Doug walked us through this too. Is like, well, this is why I think that. And I'm really damn convincing. And so I make a lot of sense with how I rationalize what I say. Whether it's accurate or not is another story, depending on the way we really look at it without all of the rationalization around it. And so my biggest suggestion for anybody going through this is have someone outside of yourself doing this with you, and then remain very open-minded, and even ask yourself when you start trying to fight for something, ask yourself how you're wrong about what you're thinking. And keep the decision making out of the brainstorming. And it's not even brainstorming, because it's more brain dumping of what's in there already. You're not coming up with new stuff here. You're writing down all of the things you do. And so when you can do that and do it with as much covering every base, so to speak, you're going to have a lot better experience, because you have more of the stuff to categorize. I tried to do this with somebody one time, and they're like, well, I do this and this.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Like, no, you do a lot of stuff, but I mean, you can put it into a category, but that's what do you do?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Even
really granular.
Construction, we buy materials, we do this, we do that, we do this, we do that, we do this, we do measuring, we write proposals, we or make bids or whatever it is. We do all of these different things, but they're so myopic in the idea, well, we build stuff. What goes into that?
Right. And who are you building it for? I mean, come on.
Right, Southwest. We fly planes with people on them to destinations.
Right.
What
Yeah,
else do you do?
that wouldn't get us very far, would it?
Right.
Don't you
And
sell
so
tickets for those planes?
yeah, and so we want to write
Yeah.
down, and it feels tedious. And for
Yep.
me, I'm one that tenacity drains me a bit. And
Mhm.
so in the tediousness of thinking and writing all of this stuff out, I wanted to quit 2 minutes in.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons that I galvanize people, is because in the tenacity of thinking about this and allowing it to just kind of have its own life and breath, I
Yep.
want to actually just, this is what we do, and move on, because it's faster for me. So I'd rather discern it and then galvanize people around it, rather than step back and go, okay, what are we really doing?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah.
Knowing that about yourself is very important, because I do not want to create a handicap on my business because I wasn't willing to step through the tenacity of the exercise to get the result.
Yep. And just for any out there that aren't familiar with the six working genius model, as Terry sits here and talks about tenacity and galvanizing and discernment, that comes from the six working geniuses, which are wonder, invention,
I'll
discernment,
talk about one.
galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. Those are the geniuses, and there's a whole model behind that that really helps us to grasp and understand, who am I? How do I show up in the work that I do? How am I most productive? And so it's a really awesome tool that really even helps you as you come to these types of things to say, okay, how do I enter in normally? Because I'm normally bent toward what are my two geniuses. And so I'm going to enter the room that way. And so Terry's aware of that. When we were going through it, he's like, I'm a galvanizer. I'm going to try and galvanize you into my whys. And I'm had to continually, as a facilitator, go, okay, wait, we're not there. We're in an information dump. We don't need explanation. We don't need you to push us to action. We're in an information dump. Let's stay right.
And I think the really cool thing, both myself and Doug are genius certified, not working genius, but just we're certified geniuses. And so we're both working genius certified, and we both understand that assessment intimately, but we also understand how those geniuses show up and the frustrations show up in us. So I actually gave up the information to Doug before we even started, that look, I'm gonna galvanize you. I'm gonna get depleted and drained with the tenacity of doing this. And I don't want to wonder, because I don't, that drains me a little bit too. So those two things drain me. So I'm going to go and fall into galvanizing and trying to just come up with answers,
Yep.
rather than allow the process. So if you notice me doing it, then
Yep. Push back.
hey, you're doing it again. And that way I give him permission to stop me from doing what I do. And he gives me leeway if he starts seeing me get into that depleted state. Okay, it's just a little bit longer. You're doing great here. Kind of, we have a few more things to pull out of you, and that way we work better together in that process. That can feel really grueling for those people. Now, the fact of the matter is you have some wonder and invention people in that type of process. It's really what would the word be? Doing the action, but you get a good harvest out of it.
Oh yeah, they're motivated. They're excited. They love it. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not excited.
And I think that's another argument for it's important when you do this, not to just, it's not just a, hey, let me get anyone to facilitate this too. There's a real need for someone who's got some skill in facilitating to really help know when to push back on you, know when to push you forward, know when to encourage you, all of those things, and know how to draw out of you the information that's needed to put together this amoeba. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be taking from what you put on the page to go, okay, now how do I draw out of that three things, maybe four, rarely, usually three things that are really those anchors, those markers for our company of how we set ourselves apart. And if you haven't gotten everything out there and you haven't you've stopped or you've galvanized them into something that shouldn't be, and they haven't seen that happening, you're going to end up at a place that's not true of your company. And you're going to end up at a place when we use these of how do we use them to make decisions, you're going to be making decisions that are faulty for your company.
I just
so
had
this
this.
will skew you off in a huge way.
Absolutely.
If you don't do well.
I had this image when you said sometimes 4, but usually 3. I had this image of the 3 legs of a stool, which is what we want to talk about. So we set on this 3 legs of a stool, and 3 legs always go into one focal point.
Yep.
And then I was like, 4 turns into a box and you get stuck in
it. Yeah.
And so I personally like 3. It's also much easier to make decisions and much easier to really go, okay, is this moving us in the direction we want? 4 kind of what happens, and I've seen this with the behavioral values also, is when we start to open it up to more, it starts to help us to stagnate. And so 3 keeps us from being myopic, but 4 keeps us from being focused. And so I like the 3. There's something magical about 3 that help us to, and I'm not woo or anything, but I think 3 helps us to zone in and be very, very good at not this but that, not this but that, and get very clear when you have 3.
Yep. Absolutely agree. And I'm with you. I love to get to 3 whenever at all possible. I don't think 4 is a great landing place. But
and usually what happens when I start to see that there's 4, what happens is there's 2 that are in competition and one actually belongs under the other and is a very integral part of that one. And so it's almost the same one, but people start trying to tease it out as 2 instead of going, wait a minute, this is really sub to this. And it's like the number one thing we do in that one.
Yep.
And so,
they try to get too nuanced, right? So this is not an area for massive amounts of nuance. This is an area to be categorical. And yet you want specifics, but categorically. Right. And so you don't want to get this whole nuance thing. And that's what happens. People want to start dividing out into more because they want to get all the different nuances of, well, we might do it this way or that way or that way or that way. And it's like,
I just heard a new friend of mine start talking about nuance, and his pet peeve with nuance is the idea of nuance really gets you into the weeds when we're actually trying to be more conceptual in the idea. And so it's funny because we need conceptual to be able to do the weed work really well. And we need the weed work to get moving further. But if we don't have the conceptual stuff, we're just doing weed work. And the way I kind of think about it is like, if I'm just doing the weeding, right? And doing the weeds, in the weeds, doing that, I could be down the block, 3 houses down, if I didn't have the context of, no, this is my house. And now I'm working for free.
Right, your neighbor loves you.
My neighbor Greg is like, hey, look at that, he weeded. And I'm not a weeder, and so I don't like weeds, and I don't like the tenacity that I just drains me to do that stuff. And so I like the conceptual better. Where are we at? And then okay, how do we go in? Where are we at? How do we go in? Where are we at? How do we go in? And so really understanding that this idea of strategic anchors is really about those 3 conceptual pillars that we're working with in order to weed the right things.
And it helps you because, again, we talk about it being a decision grid as well, because if I have my 3 pillars and whatever I'm looking at doesn't fit the 3 pillars, I don't have to get in the weeds.
Absolutely.
I don't need to know the nuance. I don't need to understand it because conceptually it does not fit us. And so I need those conceptual pillars to be the quick buffer to just go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then the things that are, this is a yes, I'm going to investigate further. Now I can get in the nuance of it. Now I can get in the weeds and figure out, so how does it fit? Let's figure out the different pieces of it and how it would go together and what it would look like. But if I'm sitting here looking at a merger with a company and I'm customer intimacy over here and their system excellence over here. I mean, it's pretty easy to go, you know what? We're going to mess each other up. I'm going to bring what I do and you're going to bring what you do. And the two don't really mesh very well because one's got to be primary. And so either we're going to change the fundamental nature of your organization or we're going to change the fundamental nature of my organization to make this merger work. No, bad idea. Let's not do it. It's that simple to make the decision when you have those three fundamental pillars. And so it's got to be conceptual, and it can just walk you through so many things so quickly in terms of what actually fits us and how we set ourselves apart and how we do what we do that's special. And when we know what makes us special, we know what's worth doing and what's not worth doing really quick. And I love Pat Lencioni, who talks about he's got the question there, how will we succeed? And the amoeba he's the one that taught it to us. I love, he uses the example all the time of Southwest Airlines. And I love, he's got a story where he says, you know what, back in the day when, you could leave your bag sitting in the gate area. So a million years ago. And you could actually leave your bag there and walk away from it and the entire world wouldn't fall apart and you wouldn't get arrested. He went up to the gal at the counter and he says, look, if you guys had seats up here in this boarding section, could put my bag there and hold my spot while I go to the bathroom. And the girl goes, yeah, well, if we put seats there, that would slow down the boarding process. There'd probably be a cost to it. And our customers probably wouldn't be happy because they're boarded late and they're late. And so, yeah, I mean, it doesn't add to customer happiness. It probably would increase pricing and it would slow us down and ruin on-time performance, which is their three anchors. And she said, yeah, we wouldn't do that. And he's like, holy cow. The gal at the gate knows the three strategic anchors of how the company would make a decision and says, nope. And the same is true of why Southwest will let you on a plane and the gate agent can do it because they sit there, you come up, you say, hey, can I get on this earlier plane? Oh, okay, let me see. There's a seat. It's not going to ruin the cost of the flight. It's going to make you happy as a customer. And, there's no downside. It's not going to make it late. It's not going to do anything. It's going to stay on time. Yeah, you can board this wing. It's that simple for them to make a decision about whether you can board a plane rather than sit there and take away like the other airlines. And so this is the idea behind strategic anchors is how do there are pillars that we make decisions simpler by and that we can pass those decisions down through the organization. So the other beauty of three, and I love this too, Terry, is it's easier to memorize three things than four, right?
Oh,
the last
absolutely.
four, it's so much easier. And so there's a memorability to the three, just like values. It's so much easier for everyone in your organization to get your values, to get your anchors, to get all these things in threes, in smaller numbers. And so that now they can hang on to them. And now that clarity that you just saw at the top level on, okay, what are our strategic anchors is now easy to pass down, which is vital. You can have all the clarity in the world, but if you don't pass it down through the organization, it's a waste.
Absolutely.
The only ones that know it are you at the top. So great. You're running the great stuff at the top, but all the way down, everywhere else in your organization is falling apart.
Right. And it's so important to understand that the strategic anchors aren't a secret. And a lot of people have this idea that we have to have, a closed off executive session to really understand what our strategy is. And we got to have a strategic planning agenda and all of the stuff. And it's like, no, you don't. I totally think that there always needs to be a plan, but the plan is to understand how the strategic anchors so that we can be much more fluid within those anchors and everybody can make the decision quickly, whether it fits or it doesn't fit. And what it does is it kind of removes a little bit when everybody understands this, like Southwest, that example is really good. She knows the strategic anchors and like, the seats right there would slow us down. It would make us less efficient and it would increase cost. Okay. Now I'm able as that agent to be able to put that together. I don't need to go check with a supervisor. I don't need to put you on hold or put you out because I'm not sure whether this is or not, and making a lot of time. The other thing that it does is it really creates much more effective employees because they don't have to wonder about how to address that situation. They don't have to be, well, it's just policy. No, these are the reasons why, because we want to give you the best experience in the fastest, most efficient way. So it keeps prices low and it keeps you happy and everyone happy. And
Yep.
when people get explanations that make sense, they, even if they don't like the answer,
Yep.
they actually feel more appreciative of the person giving the information, and they settle down and don't fight for what they think is right if it makes sense.
Right.
And the idea of the strategic anchors for me, more than anything, is we know how we're going to succeed. And so when anybody asks me how we're going to succeed, oh, this is exactly how we're going to do it.
Right.
And in fact, I'm doing a proposal for some people right now, and they said, well, how, the COO asked me, well, how are you going to go about doing this? Because we've already had people say that they're going to do it and they didn't do it.
Wow.
And so this is the idea of strategic anchors. First, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And it all comes from how we address our strategic anchors in how we do what we do to make sure that your systems or your products are the best possible as we work with you. And so our strategic anchors start to work with the outside world in how we accomplish what we want to succeed at.
Well said.
I hope that was well said. It might have been convoluted, but it made sense to me.
It made sense to me. And I think at base of what you're saying is we've got to use the strategic anchors, and we've got to use them wisely, and we've got to put them in play all the way throughout the organization. We've got to be open about them and talk about them again and again and again and again and again and again, so that everyone is aware this is our decision grid. I mean, if you think back to the best days of Home Depot, put it in a retail setting, their customer service representative at the cash register could make a decision for you. Why? Because of those same things. They knew what the decision grid was. You give your people a decision grid, you empower your people to help make decisions that are in the best interest of the company. And they also feel like you trust them. They also feel like, hey, I'm empowered. Hey, employee engagement's going up. I mean, just the effects are enormous in terms of your organization. Decisions are made quicker. Customers are happier because they got a decision. They also got a really good why that's going on. It's like, hey, I may not have liked the decision at the end of the day, but your why made a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, I can go with that. And at the end of the day, your decisions are going quick. And so, hey, I'm happy. If I stand in front of the United desk or the Delta desk and say, can I get on this next flight? And they sit there and type away, and then they got to call 16 people to get a permission. I'm not a happy camper. Even if you let me on the flight, I'm like, why did you make me stand here for a half hour to say yes? Right. But the fact that the Southwest person's empowered, just look quick and go, yeah, we got room on the flight. Go ahead. Here you go. Here's your new ticket.
Yeah, I do have to say, I'm going to give a shout out to Alaska because I fly Alaska a lot. They are very, very good with this too, and I'm positive that they have worked very hard on what their strategy is and what their culture is, because they are very much in line with how Southwest does what they do, and they're not looking over there going, "How's they doing? We're going to do it that way too." They have much different ways they do things, but there's a strategy at play because you can feel it.
Yep. And what a great picture, right? Because here's two airlines that are doing well at what they do, but what they do is not the exact same thing.
Right.
But they have a culture, they're a strong culture they've built, they have the decision grid they've built, they've got the strategy, and they live by it, rather than try and look over their shoulder at, oh, here's what United does, I got to do what they do. Or here's what so-and-so does, I got to do what they do. It's like, and especially in the airline industry, that's such a copycat industry, right? One starts charging for bags, we all charge for bags. One starts charging for meals, we all charge for meals. It's a copycat industry. And here's these two that just say, no, we're setting our path.
One has a door blow off, and now they're all trying to do it.
No, yeah, we want.
Sorry about that. Off the rails.
That might be a Boeing thing, not a them.
Yeah, that might be a Boeing thing.
And they're trying to not have that happen.
Right.
That's going to be their new strategic anchor. Our doors don't blow off anymore.
Make sure the doors do not blow off. Blowers.
Oh God.
Yeah. So I kind of described this idea of amoeba. What are we really looking at, and how do we go about doing this?
In terms of getting to, let me clarify that question. Getting down to it, you describe the amoeba, and then from the amoeba, what we're really looking at is what are the patterns, right? Where do we see things that group together? What are the patterns? And then we start to go from there to say, okay, what pulls them together? What's the concept? What's the principle? So we're going from the granular. Here you go. You're in the weeds again. And now you go from the weeds back up to the concept. And that's the idea is, well, what's the concept that informs all of these? And so we're pulling back upward out of all the detail back into, okay, what are our three pillars that these things all congregate around? And we want to find out what those three pillars are. And once we do that, then we want to put it in phraseology that really makes sense to us as an organization, not marketing phraseology. At this point, what we want it to be, stuff that makes sense to the people in our organization. And it's just not just the leadership, that's everybody. And then we want to help everybody get it. And so there's a piece of it that could be a little wordsmithy of, hey, I want it to be catchy enough that it sticks in people's minds, but yet I want it to be so us that it's easy to remember too. And so those key things, when you really get down to those three things, it's really not that hard for your people to remember because they're like, oh yeah, that's us, right? That should be the natural response of the people in your organization when you go, these are our three anchors of how we set ourselves apart and how we enter the market. And your people should just go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's good. You're right. That's been true of us. So you're really discovering what's true of you. You're not inventing something. And I think that's where people go off the rails on strategy too. They're constantly trying to reinvent a new strategy. Oh, well, that was our strategy for the last quarter. We're going to have a new strategy for this quarter. Really?
Actually, Alan Mulally talks a lot about that well, he doesn't talk about it. The book that describes him working with Ford and American Icon describes that kind of situation where people think that there should be a new strategy. And he'd go out to a press conference the next year and they go, okay, so what are you going to do now? And he pulls out his card and reads the strategy of the three things that they're going to do. And it's like, this is what we're new Ford. And we're one Ford. And this is what we do. And the funny thing is they're like, well, that's it. That's what you said last time. And it's like, that's what we're going to do. We're not changing our strategy. We're continuing our strategy because this is what works.
Yep. And that's a struggle as a leader in our current culture of business, because there's always these new shiny things, these new ideas, these new ways of doing things. And we always feel like we have to be on the cutting edge of the new. And the problem is there's a reason there's another new thing, because the last new thing didn't work. And so at some point you've got to say, okay, let's get back to basics. What sets us apart? And then how are we just going to keep living it? And it becomes a discipline thing and not a, hey, we got to reinvent again and again and again, but it's no, we got to keep living it and we got to keep bringing it back to us so we can keep doing it. That's where the job of the leader is to over communicate, to constantly keep that before his people. That's the Alan Mulally. Everyone's got a card that says this is the one Ford and these are the things we're doing. That's him sitting there saying it again, both outwardly and inwardly, again and again and again, because this is what we're going to do. We're pushing forward and we're having discipline to live out the plan in a way, because that's the plan that leads us to success.
Absolutely. I think we've hit this pretty good. So I'll give my end comment with the idea that strategic anchors are important, and this process by which we go from granular to conceptual is super important, because when we can start with that way bottom up kind of idea, what we get is much more clarity and focus. And as we have more clarity and focus about what we're doing and how we're doing it, then we have more consistency in the decision making, because we can really go, okay, does this fit in or not? And then the other piece is really being able to align it with our team. Everybody understands the ground up. Nobody's forgotten. Everybody's included. And so everybody has an ownership of these strategic anchors, so that there's alignment across the teams. And then it keeps us to stay adaptive while the changes happen around the world, whether the market or whether the economy goes down or up. These are our strategic anchors. Whether the newer thing like Bitcoin, like I was talking about earlier, comes out and, oh my God, this is a game changer. Let's just drop all of our strategic anchors and go mining. We don't do that. We stay focused and we stay clear, we stay adaptable and aligned. And when we're doing that, it's very difficult to have problems in the business.
Yeah, well said. Clarity and alignment win the day, right? I mean, that's, if you can be clear, you can get everyone aligned around that clarity. And as long as you haven't come up with the craziest strategy on the planet, which, if you're a business leader, you got to that point for a reason, because you have an idea of what sets you apart. And so, and it's not a one-person job. It's a collective. So if you've got the quality of business minds there to think through what sets us apart, you're in good shape. Get clear, get aligned, and keep pressing forward. That's the end of the game. And stop getting drawn away by all the other crazy stuff. This gives you simplicity. It gives you an ability to be simple.
Absolutely.
Well, we're thrilled to have you join us, and we are looking forward to next week at 1:30 on Monday, and we will see you then. Have a great week.